Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see here on our channel or on our website. Reach out to me directly, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. And today we're discussing an early FP Journe Chronometre Resonance. 38mm in platinum with yellow gold dial. This timepiece is part of the early and desirable brass movement series. We'll talk about what that means in a moment, but first, basic sizing and fit. It's the discontinued 38mm case, which went bye-bye after 2015 and is now a much sought collector's special. A favorite of those who prefer traditionally sized dress watches, the 38mm case wears well on my 16cm circumference wrist. 44.5mm from lug to lug. The watch measures 8.9mm thick with a 20mm spacing between the lugs. I could recommend it for a wrist as small as 13cm in circumference, so it wears well on a smaller wrist. Taking a look at the hardware and the software, you can see the strap here is a later FP Journe strap, meaning it's newer than the watch by some measure. And you can tell because it is alligator leather on both top and bottom. Navy blue, large rectangular scale on the top, monotone stitch. It has a folded edge and on the underside, small round scale alligator leather. Gator on both sides means you have a more durable strap. A bit more expensive, but this watch is worth it. Another feature that came later, the use of pull-tab spring bars so you can quickly and easily remove the strap from the case without tools. A simple platinum pin buckle for on-the-fly adjustments. Note FP Journe uses curved spring bars so that the lugs can be drilled closer to the case with no impediment to the motion of the strap. The watch is a bullhead winder and setter, and then there is a flyback system down at 4 o'clock that allows you to synchronize the seconds hands. It takes about 7 to 10 minutes for the resonance effect to make itself fully evident and take purchase on the two escapements. So once it's synchronized and the two sides are in resonance, you can synchronize the seconds hands even as you can set the dials separately. The watch has a classic FP Journe case, which is to say blended lugs, the lovely double dimple knurled style crown at 12 and 4, and a dome-shaped bezel with overlapping lips to the case back in the bezel forming the boundaries of the mid-case. The timepiece features a yellow gold dial with a lovely matte finish, and as you can see, there are black polished stainless steel bezels for the hours, minutes, and seconds. You have dial side bolts, black polished, a trend started by FP Journe with his first tourbillon remontoir in 1999, the idea of having the bolts visible on the dial, at first controversial, now universally emulated. You can see the hands are fired blue, and that includes the hand for the power reserve indicator. The watch has approximately a 42-hour power reserve. There's one power reserve indicator for the two separate mainspring barrels and two separate movements. You wind the watch using the crown, and of course you also set the times independently using this crown. You'll note as the watch is wound, the power reserve index progresses towards 0, and that's after vintage marine chronometers, which would always indicate the number of hours since they were fully wound, because they needed to be wound 24 hours apart, exactly 24 hours apart for accuracy. It was more important to know how many hours since the last complete winding than how much runtime was left, and that's how this system works. Turn the watch over, and you can see the caliber 1499 in its earliest iteration. First thing I want to call out is the fact that the beveling, the mirrored anglage on the edge of the bridges, actually feels quite a bit better than many of the later rose gold movements, as it is truly mirrored rounded and appears hand applied rather than mechanically applied as it is often on the later watches. You can also see that the bridge shapes changed. Now this is a brass movement. The silver is actually rhodium on top of the brass. It's an anti-corrosive agent, and the architecture of the movement changed with the rose gold that arrived in 2004. You lose the clicks and the ratchet wheels. You only see the pivot jewels. So you can actually see more of the mechanism on the brass caliber. Two separate drivetrains, one crown wheel, two mainspring barrels, two separate going trains, two separate escapements, two separate balances, and two separate regulators. Now they both beat away at 21,600 vibrations per hour. They are adjusted in 6 positions. All of this pivots on 36 joules, and the free-sprung architecture makes it robustly shock resistant, takes and holds a precise regulation. And the idea is to regulate these two so that they are very, very close in performance, and then use this small rack and pinion at center. You can see there's a rose gold pinion, and then there's a rack adjacent with a set screw that holds this second balance cock in place. Once you've fine-tuned the distance and achieved resonance whereby they are beating in sync, you lock the system in place using that set screw. It's important to note the watch is 30 meters water resistant, so you probably shouldn't swim with it. The principle of resonance which is also found in metronomes and pendulums, was brought into the wristwatch realm for the first time ever by F.P. Journe with this watch in the year 2000. And he'd attempted this on a pocket watch, his third pocket watch ever. It didn't work. In wristwatch form, it did. The idea is that if you place the balances and escapements in close proximity, they will eventually synchronize. Therefore, if one slows down, the other speeds it up, and vice versa, self-regulating via resonance phenomenon. And the timepiece was the first ever resonance wristwatch. Of course, you can set those two time zones independently, and this is known as the Resonance 1 dial. It's symmetrical on both sides. The Resonance 2, which was this watch with a rose gold movement, also had symmetrical dials. That went away in 2010 with the Resonance 3, so this is much sought. You can also see that this is a double hallmark case, both French and Swiss. You have the little diamond-shaped maker's mark of Eleanor, a Paris metropolitan area case maker that built F.P. Journe's cases from his pocket watch days through his 2008 model year when he bought the factory and moved it to Geneva as Boîtier de Genève. So you have brass movement, 38mm case. You have the discontinued Resonance 1. You have the French-made Eleanor case. A lot of discontinued factors with this watch. But the best reason to buy it is because it's innovative, handsome, and historically important. An absolute pleasure. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.